Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Stacey Skryzak.
And I'm Dawn Sterling. We continue to bring you the latest in the investigation of the shooting of Sonya Massey.
The Sangamon County deputy killed Sonya inside her home after she called the department about a prowler.
We're bringing you team coverage live in the field and in the studio with everything you need to know.
And we want to start tonight with a rally happening for Sonya right now in Springfield.
Yeah, our Carson Gordy joins us live at the rally with what's happening out there.
Several protesters have lined up at Unique's Bar and Grill in Springfield, and then they will walk nearly half a mile down to the Sangamon County building. That was the former employer of former Deputy Sean Grayson, who was fired after body cam video showed that he shot Sonya Massey in the face. We're going to step out of the frame just real quick to show the people who are lined up to protest for the death of Sonya Massey. We see signs and shirts with her on there to symbolize her. And I also spoke to the organizer of the event. She said the march was scheduled to keep attention and awareness for Sonya Massey's death until full justice is served. And since Massey's death, this story has become national news. I'm Carson Gordy. Back to you.
Thank you, Carson. We'll be checking back in with Carson later tonight on News Channel 20 at 6.
We have new details on the deputy who was arrested for shooting Sonya Massey. Sean Grayson is charged with first-degree murder. News Channel 20's Julia Rosier is working for you. She joins us in studio with more on his background. Julia?
Stacey, that's right. We have learned more. The Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell says he knew about Sean Grayson's previous brushes with the law and decided to hire him anyway. Grayson has 2 previous DUI arrests. The first DUI was in 2015. The second was in 2016 for driving on a suspended license. Both were in Macoupin County. In a statement, Sheriff Jack Campbell says his office was aware of the DUI at the time he was hired. Grayson's former commanding officer from the United States Army mentioned it in a letter of recommendation, and it says, quote, aside from Mr. Grayson's DUI, there were no other issues he had during his tenure in the Army. We also know that Grayson was honorably discharged from the Army. And we know that Grayson has worked for either part-time or full-time for at least 6 total law enforcement departments since 2020. In studio, I'm Julia Rosier. Back to you.
All right, thanks for that update, Julia. Sean Grayson will be back in court next month.
As we mentioned yesterday, questions have now been raised about the second deputy on the scene for the shooting. We have been reaching out to ISP and the Sheriff's Department for more information on that deputy, as well as checking if he'll face any charges stemming from the shooting. So far, we have not received any information. We'll bring you updates when they become available. Coming up tonight at 6, we spoke with a professor specializing in law enforcement. He gave us his perspective on the body camera footage and the investigation so far.
Sonya Massey's father lives in Jefferson County, Arkansas, where he is friends with Jefferson County Sheriff Lafayette Woods. Our sister station in Little Rock reached out to the sheriff to get his opinion on the case.
There's nothing about anything that I've seen publicly, anything I've heard, been able to confirm that justifies the actions or response from former Deputy Sean Grayson.
Sheriff Woods added that Grayson's considered a bad apple in law enforcement and that Sonya Massey should still be alive today. Well, reports have been circulating about an Illinois corrections officer making light of Sonya Massey's death on social media. Now, the Department of Corrections has released a statement on this employee. In this statement, you can see there on your screen, the department says the employee has been placed on administrative leave while they conduct an investigation. You can read their full statement on our website. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Stacey Skryzak.
And I'm Dawn Sterling. It has now been almost 3 weeks since Sonya Massey was shot and killed by a Sangamon County Sheriff's deputy. Since then, Sean Grayson has been charged with first-degree murder and fired shots from the sheriff's office.
But her family is making sure that her case stays front and center. Right now, a rally is making its way through Springfield calling for justice.
And that's where we find News Channel 20's Carson Gordy with the latest. Carson?
This was a march that started nearly a half a mile away from this location. We're now here at the Sangamon County building. This is where Sean Grayson, the deputy who was fired, used to work before the body cam footage came out that he shot Sonya Massey in the face after she called 911 for help. Hundreds of people have gathered here chanting, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." That was one of Massey's final words to the former deputy. Sonya should still be alive, and then also justice for Sonya Massey. I spoke to the organizer of the event. She said the march was scheduled to help keep attention and awareness about Sonya Massey's death until full justice is served. Since Massey's death, this story has become national news, and today we heard from Alderman Sean Gregory and State Senator Doris Turner about trying to hold everybody accountable for her death. I'm Carson Gordy. Back to you.
Thanks, Carson. And happening tomorrow, civil rights attorney Ben Crump will be holding another presser with more details on the case. According to his office, the autopsy report for Sonya Massey is set to be released tomorrow.
We have new details on the deputy arrested for the shooting of Sonya Massey. We have learned Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell knew about Grayson's previous brushes with the law and decided to hire him anyway. Sean Grayson has 2 previous DUI arrests. The first was in 2015. The second DUI was in 2016 for driving on a suspended license. Grayson's former commanding officer from the United States Army mentioned it in a letter of recommendation. It says, quote, "Aside from Mr. Grayson's DUI, there were no other issues he had during his tenure in the Army."
The body camera footage of the shooting was released earlier this week. It shows the minutes leading up to when Sonya Massey was shot by Sean Grayson. The video was also cited in the state's attorney's petition to keep Grayson detained until his trial. News Channel 20's Julia Rosier spoke with a professor in Pennsylvania about that body camera footage. She joins us now with his insights on what the video shows and the use of force that led to Massey's death. Julia?
Stacey, I spoke with Khalfani Touré. He's an assistant professor of criminal justice and African American studies at Widener University in Pennsylvania. Before that, he was a police officer in Georgia. He broke down his thoughts on the body camera footage.
My reaction was tears.
The body camera footage of the shooting of Sonya Massey continues to sweep the nation.
This happens in fractions of a second that he loses any temperament, any sense of restraint that is expected of an officer.
Khalfani Touré is an assistant professor of criminal justice and African American studies at Widener University in Pennsylvania. But before, he was a police officer in Georgia for 5 years. He also works in an extended police academy with the NYPD for the last 3 years.
I will simply say to you that upon entering her home, it became clear to me that she wasn't a threat to the officers.
Touré called the body camera footage mind-boggling.
Officer Grayson was extremely aggressive and condescending from the point that he encountered her, standing outside her door. I mean, even joking about the possibility of her being already dead.
Touré thinks the deputy went too far.
The goal of it is to keep citizens or persons out of harm's way, to include the officer or the responding officers. And that gaining control of a threat may involve incapacitation, which is lethal force, further down the continuum. But you only use the level of force which is necessary to manage the threat or manage the problem.
Touré tells me that body cameras for law enforcement are very important for transparency for the public. He believes that cameras should be activated at all times. In studio, I'm Julia Rosier. Back to you.
Thanks for that report, Julia. Under the Law Enforcement Officer Worn Body Camera Act, officers assigned to wear cameras must have their camera on at all times when they are on duty.
We will continue to follow this story, an ongoing criminal case. You can find the latest updates on air on our website, newschannel20.com, and on our social media pages.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Stacey Spryzak. We are continuing our coverage on the death of Sonya Massey. Sonya was shot and killed on July 6th during an encounter with Sangamon County deputies. Her family and her Springfield community are continuing to demand justice, with protests and marches happening around the capital city. Massey's family is making sure her case stays front and center. Tonight, a rally made its way through Springfield calling for justice. News Channel 20's Carson Gordy joins us in studio with the latest. Carson?
With calls and chants, protesters made it clear that they want justice and accountability for the death of Sonya Massey. protest had started in a parking lot.
It's a senseless killing, and it's been happening so many times.
Before marching a half a mile to the Sangamon County complex.
Top to bottom. Accountability top to bottom, nationwide. This is beautiful, the fact that it's nationwide.
Hundreds of people continued to call and chant for justice for Sonya Massey, not wanting her name to fade away after she was shot and killed by a Sangamon County deputy.
No peace! Prosecute the police!
The shooting of Sonya Massey has become a national story, with questions being raised about the former deputy Sean Grayson's arrest history and 6 jobs in law enforcement in 4 years. Signs read, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," one of Massey's last words to the deputy who shot her.
We rebuke any evil in the name of Jesus!
People said the protests need to continue.
This is what we need to do every day, and cannot let our good sister's name go in vain. Holding everybody accountable. I'm here because y'all hold me accountable. And I want to see that same thing to everybody in the county board building. Hold them accountable.
As the protest is wrapping up, a woman called on people to attend the Sangamon County Board meeting on August 13th and voice their concerns to officials. I'm Carson Gordy. Back to you.
Thanks, Carson. Happening tomorrow, civil rights attorney Ben Crump will be holding another news conference with more details on the case. Now, according to his office, the autopsy report for Sonya Massey is set to be released tomorrow. Well, News Channel 20's Julia Rosier spoke with a professor in Pennsylvania about the body camera footage from the night of Massey's death. She has more on his reaction to the footage.
My reaction was tears.
The body camera footage of the shooting of Sonya Massey continues to sweep the nation.
This happens in fractions of a second that he loses any temperament, any sense of restraint that is expected of an officer.
Kalfani Toure is an assistant professor of criminal justice and African American studies at Widener University in Pennsylvania. But before, he was a police officer in Georgia for 5 years. He also works in an extended police academy with the NYPD for the last 3 years.
I will simply say to you that upon entering her home, it became clear to me that she wasn't a threat to the officers.
Toure called the body camera footage mind-boggling.
Officer Grayson was extremely aggressive and condescending from the point that he encountered her, standing outside her door. I mean, even joking about the possibility of her being already dead.
Toure thinks the deputy went too far.
The goal of it is to keep citizens or persons out of harm's way, to include the officer or the responding officers. And that gaining control of a threat may involve incapacitation, which is lethal force, further down the continuum. But you only use the level of force which is necessary to manage the threat or manage the problem.
That was Julia Rosier reporting. We have new details on the deputy who was arrested for shooting Sonya Massey. We've learned Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell knew about Sean Grayson's previous brushes with the law and decided to hire him anyway. Sean Grayson has 2 previous DUI arrests. The first was in 2015, the second in 2016 for driving on a suspended license. Sonya Massey's father lives in Jefferson County, Arkansas, where he is friends with Jefferson County Sheriff Lafayette Woods. Our sister station in Little Rock reached out to the sheriff to get his opinion on the case.
There's nothing about anything that I've seen publicly, anything I've heard, been able to confirm that justifies the actions or response from former Deputy Sean Grayson.
Sheriff Woods added Grayson's what is considered a bad apple in law enforcement and that Sonya Massey should still be alive today.
We're learning more information about the shooting death of Sonya Massey. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Dawn Sterling.
And I'm Stacey Skryzak. A Sangamon County deputy shot and killed Sonya Massey 2 weeks ago inside her home. Today, we're learning details from her autopsy.
The autopsy confirmed the 36-year-old died from a gunshot wound to the head. The bullet entered just under her left eye and exited the back of her neck. The autopsy also confirmed she was not under the influence of drugs. Also, new information today about Sonya's previous interactions with law enforcement. According to her son, she talked to law enforcement about her mental health just hours before she was killed.
News Channel 20's Carson Gordy joins us live in Springfield with an update. Carson?
During a news conference held by Massey's attorney Ben Crump, Sonya's son Malachi reviewed new information about the case. He says on July 5th, Sonya drove to St. John's Hospital for her mental health. Her family says it's an issue she's been dealing with. Malachi then went to Sonya's home to check on the property. He says Sangamon County deputies later arrived to the home as well and asked questions about Sonya.
I talked to 2 officers or whatever, and I believe that it's the same officer that shot my mother. I talked to his partner first. Then the second officer, that's the one that I think the one that did that. She was driving herself to the hospital. They told me that they were going to go there to help her, and then this happened.
Sangamon County told me there was at least one deputy at Sonya Massey's home on July 5th, but it was not Sean Grayson, the person who shot her, or the other deputy that responded to that call on July 6th. Springfield Police Department confirmed that they responded to a separate call at Massey's mother's home within city limits, checking in on Sonya's mental health. Then in the early mornings of July 6th, Sonya Massey called 911 after concerns that there was a prowler outside, and that's when she was, and later that day she was shot in the face by Sean Grayson over an interaction on a pot of hot water. I'm Carson Gordy. Back to you.
All right, thanks for that update, Carson. Also, during today's news conference, civil rights lawyer Ben Crump asked how someone convicted of driving under the influence could be hired as a sheriff's deputy.
And when Sonya Massey was staring at the barrel of his gun, we see on the video what she did. She stooped down and said, sorry. And we believe that the bullet, the shot.
Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell issued a statement answering this question. It says, in part, quote, the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board reviewed the information which included the DUI convictions. They certified Grayson for hire and advised that he had been certified several times in the past despite the history of DUIs.
Ben Crump also mentioned the Department of Justice is looking into the shooting death of Sonya Massey. The DOJ confirmed on Tuesday it was assessing the circumstances around the case. They have opened their own investigation independent of the one happening here in Central Illinois. We'll bring you any updates on their findings once they become available. And later tonight, our Carson Gordy sat down for a one-on-one interview with Massey's family attorney, Ben Crump. We will bring you that tonight at 6.
A group on Facebook is planning a national day of mourning in honor of Sonya Massey. Residents in Louisville are planning to meet in their town for it, but they're encouraging people nationwide to gather where they can for the event. The day of mourning will take place Sunday at 1 p.m. We do have details on any gatherings happening in our area for the event over on our website. That's newschannel20.com. The NAACP releasing a statement today that reads in part, quote, we demand action on meaningful police reform legislation from elected officials. Nothing will weaken our resolve to call for justice now and vote for accountability in November, end quote.
Thank you for being here. I'm Dawn Sterling.
And I'm Stacey Spryzak. As calls for justice in the death of Sonya Massey continue, we are learning new information about her death.
That's right. The autopsy report on Sonya Massey was released earlier today, confirming Massey died from a gunshot wound to the head. Massey was shot by former Sangamon County Sheriff's Deputy Sean Grayson after she called 911 to report a prowler. The report also confirmed Massey was not under the influence of drugs at the time of the shooting. Massey's son, Malachi, says Grayson had no compassion for his mother during their interaction.
Didn't care from the beginning because I watched one clip of like the first part of it. And he just had no regards for my mother, so we need to have no regards for him and get him locked down for as long as possible.
Malachi and the family's attorney, Ben Crump, presented the autopsy findings at a press conference this morning. According to her son, Massey talked to law enforcement about her mental health just hours before she was killed.
More details also continuing to come to light about Sean Grayson's past service with the military and other law enforcement jobs. News Channel 20's Carson Gordy is working for you, digging into the former deputy's history. He joins us now live. Carson.
Earlier today, I had a one-on-one interview with Ben Crump. He is the attorney for Sonya Massey's family. He's raising questions on how Sean Grayson was hired by the Sangamon County Sheriff's Department.
When you look at all the red flags there, the fact that he had the issues in the military, the fact that he had 2 DUI charges. And
according to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office, they were aware of a serious misconduct issue in the military, which they believed to be another DUI. Sangamon County says the Sheriff's Office had documents saying he was giving a general honorable discharge from the military and a letter of recommendation from a military officer that said Grayson had no issues aside from that DUI arrest. The county told us they were aware that Grayson had multiple DUIs before they hired him.
From being hired by this Sheriff's Department and Sangamon County, they should have known about the allegations in the Logan Sheriff's Department.
Logan County Sheriff's Department was Grayson's most recent job before moving to Sangamon County. According to documents, the department filed multiple disciplinary reports on Grayson. This includes Grayson going 110 miles per hour in a high-speed pursuit, even after being told to stop, resulting in him striking a deer. And a grievance form was filed against Grayson by a man claiming that Grayson visited him in jail to intimidate him after arresting his fiancée on drug possession. Grayson took the job in Sangamon County before it was officially investigated.
Well, either they were aware or they should have been aware before they hired him. If they were being prudent in their hiring process, they should have knew all these things.
Sangamon County said in a statement in part, quote, "We were not provided any such information of any of Grayson's former employers, nor from any crediting agency, and that they can't comment on whether the information is accurate, nor why it was not shared by another agency." I'm Carson Gordy. Back to you.
Thank you, Carson. Crump says they're considering suing Sangamon County in civil court over Massey's death. This would be in addition to the 5 criminal charges Sean Grayson is facing. Grayson is charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct. Grayson has pled not guilty and is currently being held in the Menard County Jail.
Grayson was fired from the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office after being charged with murder. However, we have learned that the Fraternal Order Police Labor Council now filed a grievance over his termination. In the grievance, the union claims Grayson was terminated without cause. It also says the Sheriff's Office violated its collective bargaining agreement by sharing the details of the investigation and firing with public. The union is asking for Grayson to be reinstated and be reimbursed for lost wages.
And the calls for justice for Sonya Massey are now expanding beyond Illinois borders. This video shows a protest being held for Massey at Washington Square Park in New York City. Other protests have also been planned in cities across the U.S. to call for police reform and accountability. A group on Facebook is planning a national day of mourning in honor of Sonya Massey. Residents in Louisville are planning to meet in their town for it, but they're encouraging people nationwide to gather where they can for the event. The day of mourning will happen Sunday at 1 p.m.
You can find more coverage on Sonya Massey's death and the ongoing criminal case over on our website, newschannel20.com. We'll also have the latest updates on air and on our social media pages. Good evening. We start with that fatal phone call. Another law enforcement agency denouncing the scene caught on deputies' body cameras the night Sonya Massey was killed. Thanks for joining us. I'm Stacey Skryzak. A Sangamon County Sheriff's deputy shot the 36-year-old mother after she called 911 for help. News Channel 20's Carson Gordy has reaction from the Illinois Sheriff's Association.
I met with Jim Kychuk of the Illinois Sheriff's Association and discussed what he saw during the body cam footage showing Grayson fatally shooting Sonya Massey.
Terribly disturbing, to say the very least, that something where we're supposed to go help someone on a call and it turned into a situation that it never had to turn into.
He says he watched the body cam footage. He said a gun did not need to be pulled. and steps needed to be taken to de-escalate the situation. He added that it hurt to watch the video.
Pot in and of itself is not a deadly threat, so you would talk her into putting the pot down. I wouldn't have said it like he did. Certainly, words matter, and in a situation like this, I understand there's stress involved, but it didn't need to escalate to that point. I mean,
Krychek says this is a situation that he hopes never happens again.
On behalf of the sheriffs, all the sheriffs of the state, we would certainly, apologize and offer our condolences to the family, because this is not how we're trained. This is not how we train deputies. This is a horrible situation and one that we hope never happens again.
If convicted of the murder charges, Grayson could face life in prison. I'm Carson Gordy. Back to you.
Thanks, Carson. Grayson's next court appearance is scheduled for August 26th. Well, today we are learning details from Massey's autopsy. The autopsy confirmed the 36-year-old died from a gunshot wound to the head. The bullet entered just under her left eye and exited the back of her neck. The autopsy also confirmed she was not under the influence of drugs. We've also learned Sonya interacted with law enforcement just hours before she was killed. During today's news conference, her son Malachi said Sonya drove herself to St. John's Hospital on July 5th for her mental health. Her family says it's an issue she's been dealing with. Malachi says that same night, Sangamon County deputies showed up at Sonya's house asking questions about her.
I talked to 2 officers or whatever, and I believe that it's the same officer that shot my mother. I talked to his partner first. Then the second officer, that's the one that I think the one that did that. She was driving herself to the hospital. They told me that they were going to go there to help her, and then this happened.
Sangamon County says at least one deputy was at Sonya Massey's home on July 5th, but it was not Sean Grayson, the deputy who shot her, or the other deputy that responded on July 6th. Springfield Police Department also confirmed that they responded to a separate call at Massey's mother's house within city limits, checking in on Sonya's mental health. Also during today's news conference, civil rights lawyer Ben Crump asked how someone convicted of driving under the influence could be hired as a sheriff's deputy.
How do you even have a driver's license? Much less getting a job as a sheriff's deputy. Many questions to be answered.
Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell issued a statement answering this question. It says in part, quote, the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board reviewed the information, which included the DUI convictions. They certified Grayson for hire and advised that he had been certified several times in the past, despite the history of the DUIs. Sean Grayson was fired from the department and is now facing multiple charges, including first-degree murder. Grayson pleaded not guilty last week. A judge has denied him pre-trial release. He is set to return to court in August.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Carolina Hassett. Protesters took to the streets of Chicago today demanding justice for Sonya Massey, the black woman fatally shot this month by a deputy who was responding to a 911 call. The demonstration comes just days after ISP released the body cam footage of the incident. Grayson has since been jailed without bond. He was fired last week by the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office, though Illinois State's Attorney General is now questioning why he was hired in the first place.
There's question as to whether he should have been employed by the first police department that hired him based on things that transpired before he put on a badge, before he put on the uniform.
Grayson was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct. He has pleaded not guilty. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Carolina Hassett. People across the country this weekend are holding vigils to mourn the death of Sonya Massey, who was shot inside of her home by a former deputy. That includes a rally held at New York's Brooklyn Museum, where people Saturday placed flowers and lit candles by a picture of Massey. Sean Grayson is accused of fatally shooting Massey after she made a 911 call about a potential prowler 3 weeks ago. Police body camera footage released this week shows Massey asking the officers not to hurt her. Additional rallies are happening in Los Angeles, St. Louis, and Washington, D.C. Well, here in Springfield, hundreds of people came out to honor Sonya Massey for a day of mourning at Cox Park today. Supporters came from all around to attend. The group marched around the Clear Lake area toward Bergen Park, all of them demanding justice to be served. We spoke to a local who told us about why gathering like this is important.
It's important we all gather because it has to stop. The violence against the innocent Black Americans that are getting killed for no reason, as you see. So this is why we're here. We're here to support each other and gather around each other during this difficult time.
Now, Sean Grayson is scheduled to appear in court on August 26th.
Thanks for watching. Stick around by subscribing today and don't miss a single video.